Hello students, today we are going to learn about something very interesting. We are going to talk about someone who had fun. Someone who had fun. We all like fun, don't we? What does fun mean? Fun means enjoyment. And this lesson is talking about someone who had fun. This lesson is prescribed for both 8th standard of SSC board and the 9th grade of CBSE board. For the 9th grade students of CBSE board, the story is in your Beehive textbook. And for the 8th standard of SSC board, the story is in your English textbook, chapter number 4. And for CBSE students, it's chapter number 1. Okay, so the name of the story is The Fun They Had. The Fun They Had. Now, students, did you watch the movie Star Trek? Star Trek. Yeah, did you? Okay. Did you watch the movie Robot? Our Telugu and Hindi and all the, it came in all the languages. Rajnikant's movie. Did you watch that? Yes. What genre of movies do they belong to? Is that a comical movie? Okay. Is that a tragedy? Do we have a sad ending? They are science fiction. Those movies belong to the genre called science fiction. Now here we have a story, and the name of the story is The Fun They Had, and this here is science fiction. That means it's talking about science in a very interesting way so that every one of us can understand, because science is something that not everyone understands, not every lay person understands. But here we have our very own writer, Mr. Isaac Asimov. He is a science fiction writer, and he wrote many stories where he talked about science and how technology influences our life. Okay? And if this is one of his stories, and this was published in the year 1951. This particular story that he had written was published in the year 1951 in a newspaper. Now, before we do the story, I want to show you a few pictures. Here are a few pictures. You have picture of robots, you have picture of people going onto the moon, and you have rockets going into the space. What do these pictures tell you? Yes, it tells you that, it signifies that our world is developing in a very rapid way. Yes, we are progressing in life. We are progressing as far as technology is concerned, as far as science is concerned. Very soon we'll be able to go to Mars is what NASA is planning. So there are different kinds of developments that are taking place as far as science is concerned, as far as technology is concerned. So what do you think, children? Do you think that these developments will affect us in a negative way? Or do you think these kind of developments will affect us in a positive way? How do you think will science and technology affect our lives? Please do send us a video of you telling us how science and technology affect our lives. Okay? I would love to listen to it. Here is another set of pictures. Now these pictures, what kind of schools would we have in the near future? Right now, we all have a school, we all go to schools where it's a building, and all the students who belong to the same age go to the same building, depending upon which school you go to. Okay, go to a certain building and you study over there. This is the current structure of schools in most places. But in the near future, or maybe 100 years from now, how do you think the world will change? Yes, as far as schools are concerned. Here we have a few pictures. Here learning through computers. And I think that is what you people are doing right now because of the pandemic, because of COVID-19. Most of you are studying or learning through computers. Well, you don't really need to have a pandemic to learn through computers. Otherwise also, you can engage in some kind of learning through computers because there's so many learning websites. Okay? Now, we have virtual classroom. Well, virtual classroom and virtual reality is not the same. Virtual reality is where you wear your VR headset and where reality comes to life. You can really feel as if you are on a, roller coaster when you're wearing your VR glasses. That is virtual reality. But here we are talking about virtual learning. That means virtual classroom. That means we are learning through computers again. Some kind of interface. It can be through mobiles, through computers, but it's not, you don't really have a teacher in front of you, but you have someone teaching through some kind of medium. Now we have a robotic teacher. Well, we don't have them, we don't have too many of them. Yes, in a few countries there are robotic teachers, but not in our country, not yet. But in the near future, you may have your own robotic teacher. And moving e-text, something like, your e-books. Do you have e-books of your own in your cell phones? Yeah, cell phones these days, you can download any book you want to and you can read anywhere you want to. That is called e-book. Okay, that is e-text, electronic text, electronic books. And we already have them. Okay, but this was written in the year, this story was written in the year 1951. In 1951, probably these were not so common, but today you understand what I'm trying to say. Okay, so these are the kinds of schools that we may have in the future. These have already, these are already predominantly used now, but we still don't have the robotic teacher, not yet widely used, and we may have a robotic teacher very soon. Well, in this story, the fun they had, in this story, they don't really have a human teacher. They have a robotic teacher. Yes, they have a robotic teacher. So let us look at the story, where the children had a robotic teacher and not a human teacher like me. The Fun They Had, written in the year 1951 by Isaac Asimov, and this story belongs to this genre called science fiction. Okay, and here science is presented in a very nice way where everyone can understand. Anybody can understand. Now here, this story is set in the year 2157. 2157. We are in the year 2020. Please remember these dates. And this story was written in the year 1951. Okay? So, Margie, the story begins with this sentence. Margie even wrote about it that night in her diary on the page headed 17th May 2157. She wrote, "Today Tommy found a real book." Well, this story is starting with a girl named, has begun with a girl named Margie. Margie, she wrote in her diary that she found a real book. Do you have the habit of maintaining a diary? It's a very good habit, guys. If you don't have it, please do start maintaining a diary. Please maintain a diary and please write down things that happen in your life every day. That way, your English also will improve. Your writing skills will improve. And your thought process, your imagination also will improve. So here, Margie maintains a diary. She's a little girl and she had her own diary. And on the date, on May 17th, 2157, she wrote, "Today, Tommy found a real book." This is what she wrote on this page of her diary. So we are introduced to the two main characters of the story, and they are Margie and Tommy. Now Margie, she is 11 years old, and we have Tommy, who is 13 years. And probably, it's not really clearly mentioned, but probably Margie and Tommy are neighbors. Here we come to know that Tommy found a real book. That means they have not seen a book. Okay, I'll show you something, and I want you to tell me if you have ever seen this. Have you ever seen this? Yes, children, students, do you see this? Yes. Did you ever see this in your life? Yeah, you're probably 13, 14 right now. And in your 13 years or 14 years, have you ever seen this? If you did, what is this? Good job if you do. Yes, this is a floppy disk. This is a floppy disk, and you know, when I was 15, 16, 17, 18, these were very much common. And this is what we used to insert into the computers, and we used to store data. This is like, you know, your pen drives today or your memory cards today. So we had floppy disk, and from there we moved on to CDs, and from there we moved on to pen drives and even memory cards, and we have smaller chips than that today that can store data. But this is one of them, and I just wanted to show it to you that you know, in 15 years world has changed. You don't have them anymore, nobody uses them anymore, floppy disk. So here in 2157, Margie and Tommy see something called a book, and they're really surprised because they have never seen one. They've never seen a book before. It was a very old book. Margie's grandfather once said that when he was a little boy, his grandfather told him that there was a time when all stories were printed on paper. So here Margie, you know, she remembers, she recollects, yes, oh, it's a book. My grandfather's grandfather. This is Margie, okay, Margie, and Margie's grandfather, that is her father's father, okay, Margie's grandfather, and Margie's grandfather's grandfather, that means here. So like 1, 2, 3, 4, the 5th generation, yeah. So 4 generations prior to Margie, Margie's grandfather's grandfather told Margie's grandfather that, you know, we read books. We had something called books, and those were printed on paper, and we had pages. We could turn the page and we could read books. Okay, that is what Margie's grandfather told Margie, saying that Margie's grandfather's grandfather had told him. They turned the pages, which were yellow and crinkly, and it was awfully funny to read words that stood still instead of moving the way they're supposed to on a screen. You know, and then when they turned back to the page before, it had the same words on it and that it had had when they had read it the first time. So when you turn the page of a book, guys, when you turn back the page of a book, the text doesn't move. The text is always still. It's in the same place. But when we read ebooks, we need to scroll up and we need to scroll down. Okay? So there the text keeps moving. The text keeps moving, and you need to move up, scroll up or scroll down to find the text that you want. But here text doesn't move on in the books. And they found it very strange. They turned the pages and they realized that the text doesn't move. Gee, said Tommy, what a waste. When you're through the book, you just throw it away. I guess our television screen must have had 1 million books on it, and it's good for plenty more. I wouldn't throw mine away. Okay, so here Tommy says, gee. Gee means like, you know, man, what's wrong, like that. Gee, said Tommy, what a waste. It's a waste of money. Books are an absolute waste of money. But look at my television screen, look at my screen, look at my computer or whatever, e-book, look at my electronic book. I can store hundreds and thousands and millions of books, and still there is space to, save a few more books, to upload a few more books or download a few more books or whatever. There is still space for many more books, and I will never throw my television screen away, because I can keep downloading and uploading as many books as I want, downloading books. Same with mine, said Margie. She was 11 and hadn't seen as many telebooks as Tommy had. He was 13. She said, "Where did you find it?" "In my house," he pointed without looking, because he was busy reading. "In the attic." "What's it about?" "School." Now here, well, Tommy says, such a waste of money. I don't think, after you read the book, you just have to throw it away. But I will not have to throw my TV screen away, because I can save as many books as I want, I can download as many books as I want. Now Margie says, same with me. I don't have to throw mine away either, because even mine, I can download as many books as I want to. So even I don't have to throw my telebooks away. What are telebooks over here? Yes, they're probably books that you find in your cell phone or on a tablet. Okay, some kind of books on some kind of electronic device is called a telebook. So he says that, Margie says that, well, even I don't need to throw my telebooks away. And she doesn't know much about telebooks and books, because she's only 11. But Tommy is 13. So she asks him, "Tommy, where did you find the book?" And this boy is busy reading this book. So he just points just like that and says, "In the attic." He doesn't even look at her. In the attic. What does attic mean? This is attic, guys. The portion that is, if this is your house, this portion here could be your attic, where you store stuff. And in the foreign countries, they all have, most of them have attics to put their, old things, or to put the things that they don't use much. They put them in the attic. And he found this book in the attic. And she asked him, "So what is this book all about?" Then Tommy says, "It's about school." Margie was scornful. Scornful means like hateful. She doesn't like it. Scornful. School? What is there to write about school? I hate school. Margie always hated school. But now she hated it more than ever. The mechanical teacher had been giving her test after test in geography, and she had been doing worse and worse, until her teacher had shaken her head sorrowfully and sent for the county inspector. Now, Margie doesn't like school. Most of us don't like school, right? Now, I think 50% of the students are happily enjoying at home because you don't want to go to school. A few of you may be missing school, so that is why you want to go to school. But otherwise, the other 50% are probably like, happy-go-lucky, thinking, yes, time to spend at home, time to enjoy. So, it's okay, guys, whatever it be. Margie was one of those students who didn't like school. Well, why doesn't she like school? Well, she doesn't like school for this reason. Let's see what happened. What happened was, she hates school because her mechanical teacher, her robotic teacher, okay, she had her own robotic teacher. And this robotic teacher was giving her test after test in geography, and she was failing her tests. And she didn't know what to do, and the mother also didn't know what to do. So the mother said, well, I guess we need to call the county inspector to check on our robotic teacher if something is wrong with the robotic teacher. So Margie's mother calls the county inspector to check her mechanical teacher. He was a round little man with a red face and a whole box of tools with dials and wires. He smiled at Margie and gave her an apple, then took the teacher apart. Margie had hoped he wouldn't know how to put it together again, but he knew how all right, and after an hour or so, there it was again, large and black and ugly, with a big screen on which all the lessons were shown and the questions were asked. That wasn't so bad. The part Margie hated was a slot where she had to put homework and test papers. She always had to write them out in punch code. They made her learn when she was 6 years old, and the mechanical teacher calculated the marks in no time. So here, the county inspector came home. The county inspector, he was a round little man. He was round. Round means fat. Yes, he was a fat little man. Small, short, little means small. With a red face. Yeah, he had a red face. That means white people sometimes have red faces. And I'm sure in your English books you have come across many people who have red faces. So he had a red face and he had a box full of tools. He had a toolbox. And he smiled at Margie and, he gave her an apple to eat. He was a nice little man. He was a nice man. And what did he do? He took the teacher apart. He took the teacher apart. That means he broke it into pieces, or, he separated the pieces of the robot. Okay, he separated the pieces of the robot and he looked at all the wires that were behind the robot and he tried to fix all the wires and all the dials. And then he realized and then Margie was thinking, I hope that he'll not be able to put it back together. This is what Margie hoped. Well, after an hour, he finished the entire work in 1 hour, and after that 1 hour, the robot was up and running. The robotic teacher, the mechanical teacher was ready to, teach. And, it had the questions and it had the different topics and everything was up and running. And Margie didn't like it at all because Margie thought that this county inspector would come and would not be able to fix it. But he was able to fix it. Okay. So Margie is not happy because she didn't want that county inspector to fix the mechanical teacher. Now, so after he finished fixing it, he patted. More than taking the lessons, what Margie hated most was that she didn't like homework. Similar to most of us, we don't like homework. There is a slot. That means there is a space, little place, where she can insert her homework and her test papers. And when she was 6 years old, when Margie was just 6 years old, she was taught coding. And in those days, in 1951, when Isaac Asimov wrote this short story, in those days, punch code was one of those coding languages, I think. And that is the reason when she was 6 years old, she was taught some kind of coding language, and she used to write her tests and her homework in that coding language, and she used to insert that particular homework or test paper into the robotic teacher. And when that was inserted, the results or the test paper or whatever it is, it would calculate the entire thing and it would correct the paper and it would give the marks, okay, in seconds, because it's a robotic teacher. So Margie didn't like school at all. Margie didn't like taking lessons. Well, the worst part was not taking lessons, but the worst part was writing homework and taking tests. The inspector had smiled after he was finished and patted Margie's head. He said to her mother, I think it's not the little girl's fault. The geography sector was geared a little too quick. Those things happen sometimes. I've slowed it up to an average 10-year-old level. Actually, the overall pattern of her progress is quite satisfactory, and he patted Margie's head again. So he finds Margie to be a very cute girl, I think, and that is the reason he patted. Patted means just, doing this to one's head or whatever, yeah, whichever part of the body you pat, that's called patting. So he patted Margie's head, and then he told that, well, it's not Margie's fault. He's telling Mrs. Jones. Who is Mrs. Jones? Margie's mother. Okay, Margie's mom. So here Margie's mom is told by the county inspector that yeah, it is not Margie's fault. The reason Margie is not able to do good in the geography sector, what does sector mean? Sector means section. Okay, sector means section. The reason she was not able to do a good job in that section was because it was geared up. It was geared a little too quick. That means it was adjusted to another level, to a level that was higher than her standard. But now the county inspector, he put it back to an average 10-year-old level. Okay, and he says that, well, actually her progress is very good. It's satisfactory. It's, normal. Okay, so you don't have to really stress out. She's doing a very good job. And he patted her head again. Margie was disappointed. She had been hoping they would take the teacher away altogether. They had once taken Tommy's teacher away for nearly a month because the history sector had blanked out completely. So Margie was disappointed. Margie actually wanted them to take the robotic teacher along with them. She did not want the robotic teacher at home. She thought that the county inspector will take the robotic teacher along with him to fix it in the repair shop or wherever and then get it back. And this happened to Tommy too. Tommy, the boy that we see in the story, his robotic teacher, the complete history section was spoiled, blanked out. That means they could not see any of the history section in the robotic teacher. Okay, they couldn't see the lessons. They couldn't take homework. He couldn't do anything with the history section. That is why they had to take it to the repair shop and then they had to work on the robotic teacher. And she thought that they would do the same with her robotic teacher too. But very sadly, the county inspector fixed it in 1 hour. So she said to Tommy, "Why would anyone write about school?" Tommy looked at her with superior eyes. "Because it is not our kind of school, stupid. This is the old kind of school that they had hundreds and hundreds of years ago," he added loftily, pronouncing the word carefully, "centuries ago." Margie was hurt. "Well, I don't know what kind of school they had all that time ago." She read the book over his shoulder for a while and then said, "Anyway, they had a teacher." So, she asked Tommy, why would anybody write about school? School is one of the most, not for, there's no fun in school. It is one of the most boring places anyone can talk about. Why would anybody write about school? Then he says, well, it's not the kind of school that we are going to. We have a robotic teacher. It's not the same kind of school. Then in that too, he talks to her in superior eyes, because he knows more than her is what he thinks. He's 13, right? And she's 11. So he looks at her with superior eyes and talks to her in a very superior way to say that he knows a lot more than Margie. And he says that, well, stupid girl, little foolish girl, silly girl, don't you know? These are not those, they did not study in a school like we are studying right now. They had different kind of schools, and these schools existed how many years ago? Centuries ago. Centuries ago. So they're talking about us as being centuries ago, just few years, but yeah, centuries ago. Hundreds and hundreds of years ago, they had schools like how we have right now, is what Tommy tells Margie. Margie was hurt. She was like, feeling very bad. The way he spoke to her in that intimidating tone, she was very much hurt. But because, he's older than her, she cannot do much about it. Anyway, she was trying to read the book over his shoulders like that. And when she read at a point where it says that they have a teacher. Well, she doesn't like teachers, as I told you. She said, they have a teacher. Anyway, they have a teacher. It's so boring. Sure, they had a teacher, but it wasn't a regular teacher. It was a man. A man? How could a man be a teacher? Well, he just told the boys and girls things and gave them homework and asked them questions. A man isn't smart enough. Sure he is. My father knows as much as my teacher. He knows almost as much, I betcha. Margie wasn't prepared to dispute that. She said, I wouldn't want a strange man in my house to teach me. Tommy screamed with laughter. You don't know much, Margie. The teachers didn't live in the house. They had a special building and all the kids went there. So now, when Margie says that, anyway, they had a teacher, it's a boarding school. Then he says, no, they didn't have a regular teacher. Regular here is talking about the mechanical, the robotic teacher. Okay? They didn't have teachers like how we do. These are not the regular teachers. These are not the mechanical teachers. They are not robotic teachers. They are humans. They are people. It's a man who's going to be teaching. A man? How can a man know as much as a robot? Is Margie's question. And Tommy says, yes, even men can be very smart. Humans also are smart. My father is a very smart man. Okay? And Margie was not ready to argue with Tommy because Tommy is always trying to, show off that he knows more than Margie. So Margie finds out that, there is no point in arguing with Tommy. So she continues talking about the school and she says that, well, I don't think I want a strange man in my house. Then he laughs and says, no, they don't come to your house to teach you. They all go to a special building called school. All the children go to the special building. The teachers, the man teacher also would go to the same building to teach those students, is what Tommy tells Margie. And all the kids learn the same thing? Sure, if they were the same age. Well, Margie asks a very interesting question. So does it mean that all the kids would learn the same thing? Then Tommy tells her that no. If they all belong to the same age group, if they all belong to 8 years, then they all go to 3rd standard. If they belong to 9, if they are 13 years, then they all go to 8th standard. If they're 14 years, they go to 9th standard. So this is how they are divided, is what Tommy tells Margie. But my mother says a teacher has to be adjusted to fit the mind of each boy and girl it teaches, and that each kid has to be taught differently. Just the same, they did do it that way then. If you don't like it, you don't have to read the book. I didn't say I didn't like it, Margie said quickly. She wanted to read about those funny schools. They weren't even half finished when Margie's mother called, Margie, school. So here they're talking about schools and teachers, and Margie says that, my mother is Mrs. Jones. Mrs. Jones, my mother says that the teacher should be adjusted to the level of the student, because they had what kind of teachers, guys? Yes, robotic teachers. So the robotic teacher should be adjusted to the level of the student it is teaching to. But here, if it's a group of students, how would one teacher be able to, adjust to all the different levels of the children, the students, is Margie's question. Well, Tommy says, well, it's kind of, the same. All of them belong to the same age, so all of them have the same kind of level, mental understanding. So they all have the same teacher. And he says, well, if you don't like schools, if you don't want to read about schools, then don't bug me, is what Tommy says. Well, Margie says, no, I didn't say that I didn't like those schools. I do. They're funny schools. It's so funny that they have a special building, all of them go to this special class, they have one class, they all sit in one class, they have a man teaching. It's very, very funny. I find it very funny, is what Margie tells Tommy. And she says, yes, I want to read that book. And while this conversation was going on, Mrs. Jones, that is Margie's mother, she calls for Margie and says, Margie, it's time for school. Margie looked up. Not yet, Mama. Now, said Mrs. Jones. And it's probably time for Tommy too. Margie said to Tommy, can I read the book sometime after school? Maybe, he said nonchalantly. He walked away whistling the dusty old book tucked beneath his arm. So now Mrs. Jones, that is Margie's mom says, well, it's time for school. I think it's time for Tommy also to go to school. Margie doesn't like school. So she says, Mom, not now. She says, no, right now. Come down right now for school. And so Tommy has to leave because she has to go to school. She has to study. And so Tommy puts the book under his arm and he whistles and he walks away. And while he walks away, Margie asks him, can I read the book along with you after school? And so he says nonchalantly. What does the word nonchalantly mean? Disinterestedly. Okay? He was not interested to answer her question. So he was like, he didn't take it too seriously. So very uninterestedly or disinterestedly, he just told her that, yes, if you want to, you can read the book along with me. Margie went into the schoolroom. It was right next to her bedroom, and the mechanical teacher was on and waiting for her. It was always on at the same time every day except Saturday and Sunday, because her mother said little girls learned better if they had learnt at regular hours. The screen was lit up, and it said, today's arithmetic lesson is on the addition of proper fractions. Please insert yesterday's homework in the proper slot. So here Margie went into the bedroom, and right next to the bedroom they have the study room, the school room. Now Margie goes into the school room, and the mechanical teacher was on and it was waiting for her. And every day at the same time, Monday to Friday, the teacher would be on at the same time. That means it was programmed that way. Like if school is from 8 to 3, the teacher would be on from 8 to 3 every day, same time. And Mrs. Jones says that little girls learn better if they have the same timetable every day. The screen was on. The screen on the mechanical teacher was on, and it says that today's lesson is on arithmetic, and before arithmetic is math. And before we start our math lesson, let's go ahead and first let's insert your homework first. Margie did so with a sigh. Sigh means haba. Okay, you have two kinds of sighs, like yeah, yes, like that kind of sigh. And you also have the sigh of regret, where it's like, man, that also is a sigh. So Margie did so with a sigh. So you understand which sigh it is talking about, because you know that Margie doesn't like schools. She was thinking about the old schools that they had when her grandfather's grandfather was a little boy. All the kids from the whole neighborhood came, laughing and shouting in the schoolyard, sitting together in the schoolroom, going home together at the end of the day. They learned the same things so they could help one another with the homework and talk about it. And the teachers were people. So Margie didn't like her school at all. She didn't like her robotic teacher. She didn't like anything about her own school. And she's thinking about the fun they had, the people who are going to regular schools had, because they all had friends. They all would go and sit together as friends. They would be taught together, and if they had any kind of help, if they need help with homework, their friends would help. They would run to school happily, and they would run back home happily. They could go to school together, go home together. It was so much, those days were fun, the olden days. Her grandfather's days were fun, because they had schools where there would be human teachers, where they could make friends with other children of their age. This is what Margie kept thinking. The mechanical teacher was flashing on the screen. When we add fractions 1 by 2 and 1 by 4, Margie was thinking about how the kids must have enjoyed or loved it in the old days. She was thinking about the fun they had. So the mechanical teacher was on, and it was teaching her math. And the question there was 1 by 2 plus 1 by 4 is equal to how much? It was asking this question, but Margie was thinking about the schools that the olden days people had. where they would have fun in the schools. But here Margie had no fun. It was only herself. She had one teacher, and it was a robotic teacher. It was not even a human. She didn't have any kind of human touch. It was just a teacher teaching her. It was a robotic teacher. So she didn't kind of have that emotional contact with the teacher, and she didn't have any playmates. But the schools that we go to, we have teachers where, you know, we can connect to them. Yes, we can love on our teachers, the teachers love on us. So it's something that, you know, it's like vice versa. There's give and take when we go to schools like this. We have friends. Yes, we can go along with them, come home along with them. We can have fun. That social awareness is something that is missing in Margie's life, is what we see in this lesson. So I hope that you all will understand the importance of the schools that we are going to. Okay, so let us appreciate the way schools are being conducted now. We don't know how schools will be 30 years from now. So write an essay on this, guys. Think about it and think about the kinds of schools we may have in the next few years, after 15-20 years. How would the schools change? Please write an essay and do send it to us if you want to. Okay, until then, keep watching us on Classroom TV.